Just the rambles. Because I think it's really important to document the whole process, and I'm sure that I am not the only person going through this, whereby you feel like something has nudged you out of a previous set of ways or experiences or job or whatever it is, relationship, and then you end up waiting. You're in this waiting time where there's a sense that something is coming, that you are being prepared for, that you are shifting into, that you're upgrading into, and you're navigating that time, this kind of time in the gap. One of the things that's really been coming up for me is getting to tune into the emotions more and more as a sense of them being guides. And I've been really, I don't know, affected by people talking about anxiety like it's this terrible thing to be afflicted with, and that children, even really young children, are now saying, oh, I suffer with anxiety, like it's this awful burden. I just feel so passionately that actually we're missing something massive here, really massive, because our emotions are such an important way for our body and our sensory system and our intuition to be able to get in touch with us and translate things. And we're just not getting the message properly. We're just not always understanding what anxiety means. And when I see people and we're talking about how they're feeling, usually we have a lot of fear around how we feel and what those feelings represent. And we tend to be very much engulfed in the energy of those fears and uncertainty and anxiety. They come up in a particular way, but if you are able to be brave enough to sit in them, that is where you're going to get your answers. That's where you're going to get your next steps. It's, imagine not only being interested in the parts in life where you're in the bliss and you're in the joy and you're in the wonder. I just came about this thought that, why am I only interested in those bits? Why am I not finding the purpose in the bits where there's the lull or the depression or the anxiety or the stuckness and the frustration, the confusion? Because if I look back, there are so many times in life where this is where the gems are hidden. This is where the true treasures are that lead to those episodes of the joy and the bliss and, all the wonderful things. And life can't be just about the wonderful things. And we can't fully appreciate and be in those wonderful things unless we experience the contrast. And in the contrast, we really get to the nitty gritty of where we're going next, and we pull back the layers and we figure things out. I just feel so strongly that it's a toolkit. It's such an amazing toolkit that we've been provided with that we just don't know how to use. So when I sit and just breathe into what is going on, why the funk, or why am I so jittery about this? If you sit quietly enough and you're brave enough to actually listen and listen and listen, you don't necessarily always get the answers in that moment. Like, I can meditate and have a frustrating meditation and think I didn't really achieve anything, I didn't get anything. But because I've given myself that time for the mind to do its little blurb, it's like it shifts something. And then later on in the day, when you're doing something else like folding laundry or washing up or driving, that's when your brain comes up with these little droplets of intellect, this intel, this that's what that was, or that's what I've been thinking, or that's what needs to shift, and that's what needs to heal. So I'm becoming less and less afraid of sitting in any particular state and assuming that it's useful, assuming that there's some message from my intel, from my body, and that if I give it enough time and I sit with it and I'm not frightened of it and I don't rush it either, because that's what I've done in the past. I've been rushing to get through this, to get to the next bit, and I've been really kind of slapped down, I think, by the universe. Well, by me, because I really believe we are the universe. We're only ever just getting a reflection back of what we're allowing ourselves to receive, what we're allowing ourselves to believe is possible, where we're at in our vibration at this point. It's everything that we get is something coming back that gives us a pathway to the next point. So I don't think you can just go from A to B. You probably can, but being human, we need to go through the wilderness, the gap, the journey, the bit from here to there. And then there's going to be another here and there anyway. But this wilderness in the middle, you don't just go from I've got this spark that I'd like this thing to be different, or I'd like to feel differently, or I'd like to receive differently, and then it just happens. It doesn't. You have to go through this wilderness bit where you pick away the brambles that are in the way of you having that experience, or having that relationship, or having that money, or that job, or whatever it is that you want to have. And the only way that we can clear those brambles is if we become aware of them, and then we're going to get scratched and cut. And I think a lot of us probably sit in that place of tending to the cuts and talking about how painful the cuts are and how uncomfortable this is and how awful this is. We don't take a moment to go, well, what is the message in these brambles? How do I clear them? What do they represent? Where do they come from? And I know that I'm in a perpetual state of this self-analysis, and sometimes that's great and sometimes that's not so good. But I know that this is where my deepest growth and my biggest shifts come in. So sit with the brambles, let them scratch you. Look at the cuts. Where are they opening wounds on your body, in your memory base, where are the scars? I know that I made a decision a long time ago that I'm done screwing myself over. Nobody else is doing it to me. It's completely me. I have orchestrated the circumstances and the setup for me to continually allow myself to screw myself over. And I mean that in the most loving way, because I know that I've needed to go through that. And I know that that's the only way you wake up to the things that you need to heal is when you do them to the extent that you get frustrated and infuriated and broken down. You get to this point of, do you know what? I'm done. And I've never been able to move away from something into the next thing willingly. I've always had to orchestrate something where I get pushed, where I get nudged, where I almost get forced into a corner to go, okay, well, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I move, and then the shift can happen. But again, it's never, I made the decision and then the next day everything was beautiful and this opportunity came in. It rarely seems to flow like that. And I think that's where we get stuck and we get frightened and we get lost. But what about the beauty in being lost? In it being a potential for opportunity, for us to find these little gems, these little missing parts of ourselves. I absolutely made this decision that I want to pull out the bits that I know that I'm doing really well, and the bits that I love, and the bits that really serve me and fill me up. And I want to be all those parts, and I want to identify the aspects that are the thorns, the bits that I seem to perpetuate the cycle. And I know that we're all perpetuating certain cycles and certain patterns. And it's so fascinating to see how it unfolds in front of you when you've made a decision that I'm not going to do it that way anymore. And before the new way comes in, you get this unrest, what am I doing? And this is unsettling and uncertain, and I don't really know what's next. And it's having that faith and that trust that the universe, this process, this journey has never let you down before. And patterns will repeat and repeat and repeat. Sometimes because we need it to be at that pace. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not missing the point, or you're not going too slowly. The process really does take that long. And sometimes you're only ready to do the first layer of it. I've been in this particular process with this particular pattern, actively working on it for 2 years. And before that, little tiny bits and pieces of just snatching a moment of awareness and a little bit of, I'm sure this could be different, and I'm sure it doesn't need to be like that. Or, oh, I know that I've made that happen. I know that I've made this harder for myself. And the last 2 years have been very much about bringing myself, making myself matter, making it so it feels like the balance between giving and receiving can find a new flow, can find a new setting. And so sometimes the biggest, deepest pits are the ones that bring the biggest, most incredible shifts. So there's this little spark of excitement for, God, this is building into something. And right in this moment, for me, I'm very much about scatter the seeds. If you're not sure, if there isn't one big direction, do the small things. So do the tiny things each day that can make a difference to you, to your life, to your well-being, to who you are. Even if they're just seemingly silly things, like making something in your life a little bit easier by changing the way you organize your day, or you organize a cupboard, or something physical and practical in your home or in your life. All of these things are making little dents. And so if there isn't an obvious big way, do those little things. And in terms of, if it's work like it is for me, I'm just feeling like, you know what, I'm just going to throw loads of seeds. I'm going to think about all the things that I love doing, all the things that I know bring me great joy to do, and all the things that I'm good at, the things that are my true skill set. I'm just going to throw out loads of seeds, and I'm going to see what sticks. I'm going to see which grow. And every day I'm going to be fighting aspects of myself that are telling me it should be more organized, it should be more orderly, it should be more structured, it should be more planned, it should be more successful, more quickly, it should be this, all of that. And you know what? I know the feeling of those thoughts that come from the doubting part, the part that's frightened, the part that doesn't like uncertainty, because we're human. And again, my body gives me that sensation. It gives me an emotional experience of that. So I'm beginning to really recognize the flavor of those thoughts and know I need to push through those thoughts. I need to let them go. I need to lovingly just say, you know what, gonna do it anyway. Gonna just keep moving through and seeing what unfolds and seeing what births. And I'm so grateful that I'm realizing that my body can always intuit what the energy is telling me, what direction I'm being given. And I'm really absolutely not alone, because we all have this well from which to draw. We all have this source, and we're all coming from this same source. And I really, really firmly believe that this is what people call God. This is the universe. This is divine. This is this collective well of infinite energy that is so bright and transformative and loving and compassionate. And all we're doing is having that energy move through our physical body, our unique physical body, for our unique human experience. And all that we're doing is learning how to let more of that come through. And it's our human mind, with our doubts and our worries and our uncertainties and our stuff that we're healing and working through, that tethers how much light can come through, how much of that energy can come through for the different kinds of experiences that we want to have. And we are the ones, we are the gatekeepers. We decide, consciously or unconsciously, whether to let that come through and whether to allow ourselves to have that experience. And sometimes you're really in the flow and it's pouring, and other times we're like, whoa, 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 you know, I'm putting a stopper on that. Again, sometimes we just don't know that we're doing it. We can all come to this place, and I know that when I come to this place and I tune in and I just breathe and I be and I trust, I know that it always serves and it always gives and it always directs. And there's a way that our brains can translate how that energy comes through, because you get an inspired thought to do something, a tiny thing or a little thing or a huge thing. It's, again, there's a flavor to that. There's a sensation to that. There's an emotional resonance of I've had an inspired thought, because it feels expansive, it feels enjoyable, it feels like it is inspiring. It is, yes, there's a yes to that. There's like a whole body yes. That's what I want to drink right now. That's what I want to have for lunch right now. Or, yeah, I'm going to ditch this and I'm going to go and do that. Or, this is the order that I'm going to do my day in. Or, I'm going to quit my job. Or, whatever it is. You know the feeling of it because it feels like yes. And you don't always know where it's going to end up. It just feels like I'm absolutely drawn in that direction. So my work at the moment is very much keep going to the well, keep getting direction, keep trusting enough to take the direction and have a go with it, because we're all just having a go, really. And this is the documentation of this process of being in that gap, rather than like so many people do, you wait until you've figured something or you've got there and then you can explain, oh, okay, this happened and this is how I got there. I think so many more people now are needing the nitty-gritty of the mechanics of how is this happening and how do I deal with these times where I'm in that fear or I'm in that uncertainty, and everything in my logic is telling me to run to a safe place, but the safe place no longer feels safe because it doesn't feel like it wraps you up. It doesn't feel like it's inspiring you. It doesn't feel like it's taking you anywhere. If anything, it feels like a dead end where you're going to hide. And so many things that have come up for me recently as maybe you could just do this, feel like that dead end. No, it feels like a no. So being ready and open to, well, what else? What else? And so, yeah, scatter the seeds and don't be scared of the emotions. That's the rambles for today.